Lil Nas X, Old Town Road, been making some waves in the music world. Uh, this is interesting. So the song Old Town Road dropped back in December of last year. Got a little bit of attention, but then Justin Bieber, I think it was on his Instagram story, said, this is my new musical crush, and was listening to the song and gave it a shout out to his followers. Quickly picked up steam, obviously, because the Biebs is just he makes moves happen, and it started climbing the country charts, which is interesting because I don't know if people would describe Lil Nas X as a country singer. Would you?
No. Despite having horses in the back, he came up as an Atlanta trap rapper. You won't see any. I think he has two projects, but they're not on Spotify. They're just on like SoundCloud. And yeah, he's a new, another trap artist. Nothing out of the ordinary there. I actually wasn't familiar with him because he hadn't really made that many waves with those traditional rap songs. But then Old Town Road comes out and gets picked up with lots of memes and SpongeBob memes and all that, and evolved as a viral song does in 2019. Not really surprising, but what's so interesting is the whole country thing. I think the reason we're talking about this today is because the song started to top the country charts and was being requested in country radio and all that. And then Billboard decided it wasn't actually a country song and they took it off. And then there was this big backlash to that. And that's kind of what everyone's talking about. Mm-hmm. And I find it very interesting because, you mentioned Bieber shouting out a song getting big, but the song right now, as of the time of recording, is number 2 on the U.S. Top Spotify charts. It was number 1 before Billie Eilish dropped her album, which is crazy. It's was the biggest song on Spotify, period, not just country. So the song is that big. I think it's top 10 globally too. So quite a massive song. Again, it's under 2 minutes. It's a pretty simple track that I would really call, I think, country trap. I wouldn't really call it country to spoil the convo upcoming. But I mean, what was your takeaway when you started to dig into the backlash to the removal of Old Town Road from the country charts? What would you make of this? Because this sounds like a very 2019 issue with the charts being so influential and a real talking point these days.
Yeah, to call it a 2019 issue, I think actually takes away some of the history of this because, when you think about what makes country music, I guess people would consider acoustic instruments, guitars, fiddles, things like that. Mm-hmm. When you think about what makes artists that are not rap, so when you go outside of rap, what spheres do you see black artists in? You see them in pop, sometimes in rock music, not as frequently, and then you see them in rhythm and blues. It's the catch-all term. When you see Hispanic artists, it's Latin music. That's the catch-all term. And I think this is really where it comes down to. It's just that while I don't know if Old Town Road I would necessarily consider it a country song, this idea of what makes a song a certain genre and genre blending just in general is really interesting, especially because it does seem to have a history of racial overtones behind it. These artists being categorized based on their ethnicity rather than by the music that they're actually making, and what that music qualifies as is pretty interesting, especially Latin charts. Still, I think they just basically put together any song that's mainly Hispanic sounding or speaking, which that includes hip hop, rap, pop, rock. It all flows in together. So I find this actually a pretty fascinating topic. What was your take?
Yeah, you're right. It's not just existentially a 2019 problem because we've seen this come up. And I think what I started to grab onto was that I think this just kind of sets a bad precedent. The way this was going. And I think you really have to kind of analyze how country music is operating these days. And again, if you're new to the channel, which please subscribe, rate and review on iTunes, all that, you'll probably notice that we don't have any country reviews on the channel because we don't actually like country music. So I'm kind of coming at this at the top level music industry perspective. But country music right now is kind of having identity crisis with its charts too. So it's really funny to see then this new song that's really, I mean, it's got a trap beat. So I do side with Old Town Road not actually being a country song, but I'm more interested in the precedent. And all like top country songs right now, you go on these charts, and these are all like very pop influenced songs. You know, you mentioned fiddles and like traditional instrumentation. A lot of that's like disappearing from like top end radio country. So the fact that country music would start to get on its high horse when it's already been selling out and just being a worse version of pop music, I think is kind of rich, you know? And like, just speaking to actually like race, I think if Lil Nas X put this song out and his name wasn't Lil Nas X, it was just his birth name, or maybe he was just a white guy, they probably would have let it slide. Because I mean, we have songs like "Body Like a Back Road" by Sam Hunt. That's very country. Or "Meant to Be" by BB Rexa and Florida Georgia Line, which is just a straight pop song. You know, country doesn't mind if depending on who's involved. You know, but I think that everyone got mad and bringing up race and all that. I think the problem is if we go down this road, then you're gonna let people try and get into hip hop and like use this kind of like barely there logic, and I think it kind of opens a can of worms. I mean, look at the hip hop charts right now. We have "Sunflower" off the top, Post Malone, Sway Lee. There's no rapping in that song at all. That's a singing song. Doesn't mean the song's bad, but I'm just saying it should be on the hip hop charts. You know, "Please Me," Cardi B and Bruno Mars, the same thing. There's a little bit of rapping on that. Mm-hmm. Remember a few years ago, Drake, "Hotline Bling." He's like, I don't know why they thought that was a rap song. I wasn't trying to make a rap song. You can give me an award or nominate me for an award that isn't a rap category. You know, so these, I think, still classifying things correctly it is wise, but also I think the barriers, you know, you have to call both ways. And I think country music itself is kind of looking a little foolish here. But I mean, what do you think? Do you think it really matters? Do you think this will come up again?
I think it'll definitely come up again, only because I think the further and further you get down the line from the genesis of anything, the more that there's going to be blending just by the nature of people having these different influences in their life. The interesting part to Lil Nas X in Old Town Road is that this seems to be him just trying to like capture an internet moment, and then this became a whole bigger issue because I supposedly the story goes he was like put this out at a time when a lot of like cowboy kind of memes or like Western memes were on the internet. So you just want to like
Redemption 2 had just come out. So it's fitting, good timing.
And then this really has like grabbed this discussion, which is just kind of fascinating and also like very smart of him to like put this out and like to get this kind of conversation going, which whether he intended it or not, just pretty amazing. I guess I come back to like how are. And we talked about this with like streaming, I think about a year or two ago when we talked about how they're going to use streaming into the charts to really see who is selling the most records, what's actually most popular, is how are these gatekeeper organizations, whether it's Apple or Spotify or the Billboard music charts, how are they going to start defining these ones that do blend these genres? That, I mean, you think about someone like Chris Stapleton, you know, he's very clearly rock and country. Are we going to have to pick a side with this? You know, to bring in like another, it's not apples to apples here, but like in the MLB, there's an issue right now, or there's going to be one coming up next year where you're going to have to declare what position a player plays. But you do have some people that who pitch and hit. And it's like, is that what artists are going to have to do when they drop this music? Say like, oh, I want this to be a hip hop song. This is a country song. You know, it's an interesting idea. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, you know, I think they're probably going to do that because all these gatekeeping organizations want to classify things. I mean, we think of something as monolithic and largely irrelevant as the Grammys. To their credit, they didn't nominate Post Malone for Best Rap Album, even though he was nominated for Album of the Year and all that. So, like, they kind of saw through that, I guess, because it didn't meet the threshold of rapping. They cited some percentage of rapping. There wasn't enough, right? So maybe if we kind of apply that kind of threshold to charts and radio placements and things like that, I don't know. But, you know, I mean, shout out Grady Smith on YouTube. He has a great video called "The Beat That's Ruining Country Music." And he talks about like clap beats and how basically country is just trying to copy what pop music's doing, just not as well. He speaks about it very eloquently. I'd recommend that video. This kind of applies to what we just said about country kind of getting on its high horse now of all times when they're trying to take the influence from hip hop and pop. But you don't want to discourage artists. Make what you want to make. But I think we do need to find some way to prevent just blatant category fraud, whether it's Lil Nas X or whether it's Sunflower. So I think the conversation will keep going. I think somehow. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I don't think we've heard the end of it. I actually wonder if this is a bad thing for country music. People are talking about it that wouldn't usually be. It's going to be, I think, fascinating to see if this is something country music can embrace a little bit and start to genre blend more, if it's going to like push them in the opposite direction. I could see it going both ways. So just an interesting thing to think about.